When the mind is thus absorbed in the infinite consciousness, there is supreme peace. But when the mind is involved in thoughts, there is great sorrow. The restlessness of the mind itself is known as ignorance or nescience. It is the seat of tendencies, predispositions, or conditioning. Destroy this through inquiry, which means by direct observation, as also by the firm abandonment of contemplation of the objects of sense pleasure. So when the mind is thus absorbed in the infinite consciousness, there is supreme peace. This is when the attention is not being diverted anywhere and is resting in pure awareness. And it says here, but when the mind is involved in thoughts, there is great sorrow. Sometimes the mind needs to be involved in thoughts when things need to be done. It's when there's no choice in the matter. It's when the attention, here we mean by mind, we mean attention. It's when the attention is being hijacked willy-nilly, here and there, hither and thither. That's when there is sorrow. We're out of control, we're on automatic. There's no, we're not living our life, it's being lived for us. That restlessness, that complete waywardness of the attention, that's what we mean by nescience. It's driven by our tendencies, our predispositions. And if we look at that, at any moment we can ask ourselves, where is our attention? This is what is meant but through inquiry. We look at where our attention is at any moment. Just look carefully. And also by the firm abandonment of contemplation of the objects of sense pleasure. Our attention is usually on some object, mental or otherwise, which we hope will give us some pleasure. Again, look at that, observe the tendency to believe that a certain object will give us pleasure. O Ram, mind constantly swings like a pendulum between the reality and the appearance, between consciousness and inertness. And this is an important point. The mind is in touch with reality, and some people think that's liberation, but then it swings. When it's in touch with reality, that is the absolute. There is nothing else to find out or to explore. But then the attention is hooked in by something else, and we're caught up in appearances again. So we move, and these appearances are described here as inert. They don't actually have any life of their own. It's only appearances, like the mirage. And we flit between consciousness and inertness. And this is where spiritual practice comes in. Being aware that the attention is being diverted and bringing the attention back to itself, to what is happening right now, beyond all our notions and beliefs. When the mind contemplates the inert objects for a considerable time, it assumes a characteristic of such inertness. In other words, it becomes an automatic thing. There's no free will, there's no freedom being exercised here. When the same mind is devoted to inquiry and wisdom, it shakes off all conditioning and returns to its original nature as pure consciousness. This is the only freedom we've got. You might ask, well, who's directing the attention? What is directing the attention? There is the attention, and there's also the ability to direct the attention. If attention is the mind, then what is it that's actually directing the attention? It's the only degree of freedom that we've got. It's realization. It's realization. That's what directs the attention. Mind takes the very form of that which one contemplates, whether it is natural or cultivated. Whatever you're involved with, that's what the mind is. If you're looking at a television program, you get immersed in it. If you're reading a book, that's what you're immersed in, or you're immersed in the images that the book is generating, or the thoughts that it is generating. That's what your mind becomes. It's not your it's not that there's your mind and something else. That is what there is. Whatever there is, that's what it is. If there's a television drama going on, that's what there is. There's not your mind and something else. That's just a hypothesis. All there is a television drama. All there is the book and the images that it generates and the feelings. Therefore, resolutely but intelligently contemplate the state beyond sorrow, free from all doubts. The mind is capable of restraining itself. There is indeed no other way. So if the mind is what it becomes, if the mind is what it contemplates, then contemplate your attention. Examine your attention. Direct your attention to your attention. And this is what's meant by self-restraint, or restraint of the mind. Wise men remove from their mind the manifestations of the latent tendencies or conditioning, which alone is the mind. So here mind is referring to the sum total of our psychological conditioning, as and when they arise. So wise men remove from their mind the manifestations of the latent tendencies. The manifestations of the latent tendencies are what your attention is being directed to, and also being aware of the emotional momentum, the emotional quality that is propelling the attention in a certain direction. Thus is nescience removed. First destroy the mental conditioning by renouncing cravings, and then remove from your mind even the concepts of bondage and liberation. Be totally free of conditioning. When I say direct the attention to the attention, to what is actually going on right now, to what is actually happening right now. And when I say go beyond beliefs, go beyond any notions, go beyond the results of the cognitive process, this is very deep. This takes a lot of inquiry, a lot of looking at. We perceive everything through our notions. Things like, I've mentioned beliefs before, but these are only very crude notions. There are much subtler things like notions of perception. We believe that there is me here perceiving things out there. That is one of the things by which we filter what is actually going on. That I am a notion, out there is a notion. That is not what is going on right now. There is not me experiencing things here. There is no space. There's no distance, and if there's no distance there can be no space. Distance, I assume that there's something out there, but it's all happening here. It's all here, but I project it out there. I say that thing is in the distance and that thing is nearby. That's how I categorize things. That's the cognitive process. Distance and space are part of the cognitive process. There's no distance, there's no space in the immediate experiencing. Similarly with time. These are the assumptions, these are the notions which we have to examine as well by inquiry, and be quite sure we're not experiencing things through these notions. And that's what it means by be totally free of conditioning and the concepts of bondage and liberation. But as I said, also be free of notions of space, of distance, of individuality. Be here now.